Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The NonProphets. This show is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Jeff D. Today's guest co-hosts are Martin Wagner.
Hey.
Andy Roberts.
Hey.
And walking up to his chair right now, Jeff Jones.
Excellent timing.
And me.
And
just in time.
And you, our producer, Russell Glasser. Today's opening music was Know Your Rights by The Clash. Kind of angry and sarcastic, I know, but that's pretty much my mood today, so I thought we'd better get right into it. We are live October 26, 2002. The ACA is a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. Our group has meetings Sunday mornings at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop at 307 West 5th Street in Austin, Texas, 10:30 a.m., except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. in the Longhorn Room of Fur's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. The next lecture is going to be on November 3. We've got some people coming in to talk about working with tribes in the Amazon and the interference of religious groups with these little lost tribes and how the researchers are trying to help them not get destroyed by
all these
missionaries that come down and give them their Western diseases which kill them.
Yeah. And then just give them Christianity, which wrecks their culture.
Yeah, it's wrecked ours. ACA board meetings are at 10 a.m. right before our regular meeting on the second Sunday of every month. Yeah, so we know whereof we speak, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, take it from us.
Board meetings are open to all...
Yeah, you don't...
Our board meetings are open to all ACA members, but you can only vote if you're on our board of directors. If you shop at the Randall's food store chain, you can give them our nonprofit organization number 5158, and 1% of your purchase will be donated automatically to the Atheist Community of Austin. The Godless Gamers meet Monday nights at 7 p.m. here at Glasser Studios, except for last Monday when it was suddenly canceled for some reason. Ginny wasn't feeling well, I guess. ACA Happy Hour is at Antonio's near Highway 35 and 183, Thursday nights at 7:30. For more information, you can call our voicemail at area code 512-371-2911 or visit our website at www.atheist-community.org. A reminder to those of you listening over the internet, if you catch our show live on Saturdays from 2 to 3:30 Central Time, you can log into the Atheist Network website, www.atheistnetwork.com, click on the chat link, and you'll find yourself in a chat room with other listeners, and you can talk about what's going on the show, and we monitor that chat room and often respond to comments from there. Any instances of slurs, defamation, or discrimination against atheists or other non-believers in the U.S. media can be reported to the National Atheist Ombuds by emailing ombuds@atheism.org. There seems to be more of this stuff coming out now all the time. People, I mean, especially with the march coming up.
Yeah.
There are a lot of reports of from different news outlets where editorials are coming out slamming atheism or complaining about the atheist evil influence in our country and so on.
And the fact that we would dare to all get together and actually make our presence felt.
How dare we?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, how dare we be an actual group of people?
Thinking about stuff and saying things.
Yeah, and having opinions and being in agreement on anything. Admittedly, that is kind of rare amongst atheists.
Yes. Yeah. But we have opinions, we just don't usually get together to voice them.
Right. So anyway, if you encounter any these slurs, defamation, or discrimination against atheists or non-believers in the media, write up what you heard, where you heard it, when you heard it, any information you can give them, and email the ombuds at ombuds@atheism.org. They will spread that information to national and local groups who will distribute press releases responding to the incident. I just want to mention, last week, 8 members of the Atheist Community of Austin participated in the annual Austin AIDS Walk, raising hundreds of dollars for AIDS research while proudly carrying our group's banner along the route, which snaked through 5 miles of downtown Austin. Mm-hmm. That was great and a lot of fun.
Yeah, Michelle tells me more money than we've ever raised.
$470-some-odd.
Yeah.
That's the most we've ever raised for AIDS Walk.
Yeah, more than last year. Yeah. And we got a pretty good reaction. A couple of people came up and said, "Wow, great to see you guys here. Atheism, yeah, cool. I'm an atheist, and I didn't know there was a group and all this stuff." But there were college kids from the University Baptist Church there, who we went out and protested in favor of when Fred Phelps came down to slam them for allowing gay clergy.
Or even gay members, right?
Or was it gay members then?
Just
Okay,
gay congregation, yeah.
And, of course, Phelps didn't show up, but they thought it would be cute at one point to start singing Amazing Grace behind us and sort of giggling through it. And we talked it amongst ourselves and decided that if they were going to giggle through Amazing Grace, then pretty much our job was done.
Game over, we win.
That's nice gratitude, guys.
Godless Americans to march on Washington. Just about every political and social cause organization has done it. Gays, blacks, women, even the Promise Keepers. Groups of every ideological stripe have spoken out and demanded a seat at the table by mobilizing their supporters for a march or demonstration in our nation's capital. On Saturday, November 2, Godless Americans will make history and march on Washington. At the 28th National Convention of American Atheists, AA President Ellen Johnson announced this new initiative, giving Godless Americans a new voice and presence. How many people do we have? 9?
We have at least 7 potentially
from the ACA?
Before it goes or not, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
At least 7 from the ACA.
That's even more than I thought. When I originally wrote to them, I thought maybe 5.
Yeah.
So it's a decent-sized contingent from the ACA, and I know a lot of groups out there have gotten organized buses that are taking bunches and bunches of people.
We're building up at least 3 hotels there. And
right on.
So I mean, there's going to be. I think when they first started this, I had my doubts about how many people they would actually get.
Yeah.
But because I mean,
it's a new thing, and
the old saying that organizing atheists is like herding cats is true. The only thing we generally have in common with each other is our lack of belief in God and interest in that. But this is being organized very well. I'm very impressed by American Atheists and how they're doing this. They're being very inclusive and trying to get as many groups involved as they can.
Which did lead to that little tiff over Satanism.
A little problem with the Satanists who...
Well, I would argue that Satanists are theists, personally. But,
well, it depends. I believe it depends on the branch. I think that the Loubet followers, basically, I think they use the word Satanist just to shock Christians and to annoy Christians and to get.
They do seem to have a nihilistic.
They have, but they generally tend to disbelieve in gods. Their belief in the supernatural is questionable. However,
well, still, I don't. They're probably not good for PR purposes anyway, which is what they're working on.
It kind of plays into the negative stereotypes, and but it looks like they're now saying, that they're hoping for somewhere around 100,000 people.
100,000?
They're hoping.
100,000?
Well, if we get 5,000, it'll be startling.
Substantially more than that.
100,000 would be like the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech. That's 5,000 would still be great.
That's a lot. That's what they're hoping for. I don't think they're going to get it. Tens of thousands, I think, is realistic because I know that just in being around, the chat rooms and news groups and things like that there are an awful lot of people in that area. I mean, within driving area, and we get kind of a warped view of driving area in Texas.
Sure. Right. A day trip just to get out of the freaking state.
Tell me about it.
Just for your information, anybody who's listening to this will be listening to a rebroadcast.
Oh, crap. Are we not live?
We're not live. Basically, well, remember, first of all, we told people last week that we wouldn't be on.
Yeah.
Second of all, the Atheist Network is down, and because Reggie thinks that we're out of town, he's not in touch. So,
all right, that's fine.
But that's okay. Since you're listening to a rebroadcast of this, you could have heard us live on another week, Saturdays at 2.
Yeah, we did say we were going to not have a show today. I should mention that again and explain it. We were going to go on a trip, a bunch of us, to a Renaissance festival, but that got canceled on account of weather. So here we are.
And if anybody's listening to this week, we're not meeting at the bagel shop tomorrow.
That's another announcement we ordered.
We're probably
nobody will hear this.
We won't hear it.
But nobody will hear it, but they might hear it before tomorrow's meeting.
No, they will hear it like Tuesday.
How soon can you get it up on our website?
Well, I can get it up as soon as we're done.
Great.
There we go.
Okay, that website, by the way, is www.atheist-community.org. Click on the radio link. Tens of thousands. Tens of thousands.
There are within a 4 hours driving time from Washington D.C. I mean, there are literally
that will open some
people.
That will open some eyes.
Yeah, I think it would.
Wow. Okay, great. Where was I? So it's going to be on November 2nd from approximately 11 a.m. till 2 to 3, and the rally will include speeches from representatives of various atheist, free thought, secular humanist, and other related national, regional, and local organizations. And I asked for a slot on their speakers list, but we got in late, and I'm on a waiting list, so I'm unlikely to actually get a chance. But I did bring in what I have written up that I'm planning on saying if I get a shot.
I had 2 dozen names, so that I know of already on the website.
Yeah,
speakers.
Yeah.
The most prominent one,
Michael Newdow.
Is Michael Newdow, out of the people who
we have a little bit of update news on that case too, that we'll get into later. You can now collect past episodes of The Non-Prophets and an audio version of our sister show, The Atheist Experience, which airs on public access television only in Austin, Texas, on a convenient CD format. Martin Wagner here, by the way, is the host of The Atheist Experience.
That's right.
And each CD includes a full month's worth of audio from both shows in both QuickTime and MP3, plus extra surprises. The CDs are $5 each. Contact Atheism.
Set up this Mormon deal. Of course, last time it happened, we did go on. We only had an hour show that day, and we spent it, pounding the Mormons. Basically, Paul Wilson came on and talked to a few things.
Oh God, yeah. Paul lived in Salt Lake City for a while.
But it's been fun. And when the first episode of the new season was 2 Sundays ago, and then prior to that, I actually hadn't done it for 2 weeks. The previous Sunday was when we were preempted. And
that noise you hear in the background is our producer
Russell's breaking things,
dropping the equipment and fumbling with it to get everything put back in place. Everything okay now, Russell?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, they hadn't. The previous
that makes
Sunday
the show more interesting. But nobody will believe us now. We started to get these emails from people who do not actually believe that we traveled to what was it, Costa Rica?
Yeah, and
Bora Bora on those shows.
Shocking.
So maybe they think we're just playing a sound effect CD of people like fumbling with computer hardware in the background.
Well, maybe.
Someday we might do that, and they'd never know.
It's part of that conspiracy to say that all atheists are just immoral liars,
Okay, now normally this is when we do our mailbag, and we didn't get a whole lot in the way of email this week. Nothing terribly. I think we got a letter or two, but nothing terribly momentous that we need to get into. But I did get a series of emails from this guy named Kurt, to me personally, not as a response to the show. This guy who fancies himself a philosopher claims to have studied logic at UCLA, but cannot spell the word fallacy. He spells it with a PH. It's extremely funny.
PHALLUS.
No, not with a US. That would be even more funny. Claims to have studied theology at UCLA, but has apparently never heard of the problem of evil. And came at me with this brain-breaking little argument. Okay? Listen carefully.
All right.
We take as our premise that Bob is an atheist. And as our second premise that atheism is the lack of belief in gods as a result of not having sufficient evidence to justify belief in God. Then Bob encounters evidence that convinces him that there is a God. But that violates our premise, you see, because our premise is that Bob is an atheist. Therefore, our premise must be false. Bob cannot have been an atheist if he ever changes his mind. Therefore, atheism must be the inflexible position, regardless of evidence, that you won't believe in a God no matter what.
So let me get this straight. If a box is black and
you paint it white,
it was never black.
It was never black. according to Kurt's logic.
According to the
apparently this is what they're
logic students.
That's what they teach you at UCLA. Yeah.
Just astonishing. Now he came at me like he was so concerned that atheists seemed not to have a single coherent shared worldview that would make all atheists the same and make it a coherent movement. And this included, his concern about this included the fact that we use different arguments to justify refraining from belief in different God claims. Apparently, according to Kurt, unless we have exactly the same reason for disbelieving all gods, we can't be a coherent movement. We have to be intellectually dishonest about what the claims actually are, and not really address them on the specifics of the individual claim.
I see. So, seems like Kurt's doing a little projecting. Isn't it?
I don't know what his deal was. Clearly he's some kind of a kook. Oh, he told me apparently he does believe in God, but he knows he can't prove it. But he doesn't want to be called an agnostic because he does believe in God, and also that he believes in psychic phenomenon because he's experienced them.
So he's an idiot.
He's basically an idiot, but
right.
in a few amusing, interesting ways.
So your response to him was?
His first letter was short, and I responded to that, right, and said, you've got a lot of nerve trying to tell atheists what they must, by definition, believe. Because that was the start of his letter. Atheism is, by definition, blah, 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 blah. And he completely didn't get it, and wrote me this incredibly long tirade, promising at the beginning he was going to be succinct this time. And I wrote a long response to him, but basically, it was such a worthless set of arguments that he made in the first place. I haven't sent it. It doesn't seem to be worth the effort of pressing the enter button. Or the mouse key.
You might want to do it just for the hell of it, just because usually the way guys like
get more stupid arguments.
The way guys like this think is that if you don't respond to them, it's like, aha, got him.
Yeah. I don't really care what Kurt thinks.
Well, I know.
But it's somebody
this guy thinks he's had psychic phenomenon. He's dumb enough already.
Somebody who's just off on a point or two. Who he might be amenable to reason, that guy's worth responding to. This guy's a kook from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But I got to admit, there is more to it than that. Because his letter was so long, it took me like 2 or 3 days to get through my response, and reading it back, I didn't do as good a job as I like to do building my case and staying on target and stuff. So I kind of rambled, and that seemed not worth it.
Well, when he's rambling in the first place, it's hard to make a coherent response.
I know, he's all over the place.
Rambling nonsense.
Russell, I understand you encountered an amusing argument from quantum physics.
Oh yes. See if you can follow this.
Okay.
You're familiar with Schrodinger's cat.
I haven't met it personally, but I understand the concept. Yeah.
If nowhere else than from one of the Douglas Adams book, where they actually tried to perform the experiment.
Well, fill in our listeners, I guess.
Okay, Schrodinger's cat is about wow, this is like going to have to be a whole introduction to quantum mechanics. But basically,
do it as quickly as you can.
Basically, when it comes to subatomic particles, we don't know for sure where they are and how fast they're going. Because there's a principle that says that if you know exactly where they are, then it becomes harder to tell how fast they're going. And if you know exactly how fast they're going, then vice versa, it becomes almost impossible to know where they are.
Right. Specifically, we don't know both of those things. Right. We can know one or we can know the other.
But the better you know one, the less you know the other.
Right.
And because of this, it turns out that there's no way to really know what electrons are doing. We can only say for certain that there's a certain probability that they'll be doing a particular thing. So basically, Schrodinger came up with this thought experiment, which is basically you take a particle, which you calculate the probabilities as saying that it has exactly a 50% chance of decaying in a certain amount of time. Uh-huh. And if it decays, that will trigger a chain reaction that will drop a hammer on a vat full of poisonous gas. And then there's a cat in this box which
will breathe the poisonous gas and
right,
die.
which will breathe the poisonous gas, but only with a 50% probability.
Right.
Until we open the box, argued Schrodinger, you can't. Until we actually look inside and see what's going on in there, we can't say for certain that the cat is either alive or dead. In fact, in some sense, you can say that the cat is in a state of being half alive and half dead until you observe it, and observing it makes it actually come into the state of being one or the other.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Right.
Not very. It's not clear to most scientists either. But that's the way things appear to work.
Okay.
And so this guy comes in and he says, basically, okay, quantum mechanics tells us that nothing is real until there's an observer. So something must have observed the beginning of the universe, or it wasn't real. So that must have been God.
Did you ask him what observed God coming into existence?
No, I didn't bother getting there because of course we are the observers. We're here at the end of that whole process saying, yeah, that stuff happened in the past.
Right, that observer could come through at any time.
Right.
That's even if you take Schrodinger seriously, which, by the way, I don't.
I think there are arguments for it.
Whatever happened. We can't say anything about it, but that's only because we don't have any information about it.
Yeah, this is sounds like a variation on this whole sort of Buddhist thing of if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around, does it really make a noise? Type of thing,
it is a serious issue because it, as we found out, there is no way to determine what is going to happen.
Yeah.
There's no way to predict what happens or what happened in the past until you directly observe it. And there are all these wacky experiments.
At the quantum level.
Yeah, but
at the macro level, see
all
those quantum events average out when we get to the macro level to where it becomes ridiculous to worry that maybe all those dinosaur bones just came into existence because of quantum fluctuations.
Yeah, well, here's the weird thing, though. All those macro things are made of micro things.
Yeah, sure.
And those micro things add up to determine... So it is actually possible, believe it or not, that dinosaur bones could have moved into existence.
Yes,
the probability is vanishingly small,
right.
But it's possible.
Sure. But
that's that's kind of wandering off the subject of what we're talking about here.
Is it?
Actually, the fifth book in the Hitchhiker's series began with like a neutrino hitting the Earth sometime in the distant past that didn't hit it the first time around, and so the entire history of the world changes because of that, because of chain reactions coming out of that neutrino.
But isn't that chaos? Isn't that the butterfly effect? That's
in a way, yeah.
Because that's a macro scale butterfly effect, and that's weird too. But
right.
none of it adds up to until somebody sees it, it didn't happen. There's no reason to assume that the things are just not happening because there's no way to look at them until then you're looking at them and then you've seen it.
Yeah.
It seems to me like it's just a truism. You don't know what you've seen until you've seen it.
Well, there's more to it, but I don't want to do the whole show on quantum mechanics.
All right, fine. But next show.
Basically,
next show, big quantum physics thing.
Maybe.
Of course, there's a 50-50 chance we won't be on the air next week.
Well, because you'll be in Washington, D.C.
And you won't know until you tune in. So there you go.
And actually, as far as our listeners are concerned, we're
not on now.
We are, though. They're just not observing us.
Or are we?
Oh, boy.
Well, but actually, what it came down to was, I said, this is just a specific instance of the argument for ignorance, which always seems to go like this. We know from human observation that all X's are Y. But we also know from logic that some X is not Y. Therefore, all observation is flawed, and there must be something that's completely incomprehensible to us, and I call that God.
Yep. Yeah. Typical. Now, we mentioned Michael Loubet before in conjunction with the march. He's going to be one of the speakers there in Washington. I'm looking forward to that. I also have an update on the Pledge of Allegiance case. He's the guy that brought that case, the Pledge of Allegiance, that it is unconstitutional for state-employed teachers to compel the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance in schools, in public schools. There's been a new twist in this, and strangely, it is not the twist that involves this review of the case that we've been waiting for. I don't know what the hell the holdup is. Why don't they frickin' review it? Because I have a suspicion, because if they review it, it's going to stand up. But something else is going on. Michael Newdow is apparently in a custody battle with his daughter's mother, Sandra Banning, who is a Christian.
And she's been playing this for publicity.
Well, she originally, check this out, follow very carefully because it's a little convoluted. She apparently originally agreed to allow, with Newdow's plan, to cite his daughter as the plaintiff in the Pledge of Allegiance case. She agreed.
Okay.
She has now stated her desire to withdraw that agreement. And so it went to the judge in the custody battle to decide whether or not she whether it was reasonable for her to withdraw that agreement, pull her child from the case, and leave Michael Newdow without a plaintiff. And the judge ruled, well, yes, it is okay for her to do that because there is danger to the child in the form of death threats.
From Christians.
Right? Michael Newdow responds quite reasonably by saying, when I made my case, I kept my daughter's identity anonymous.
Right.
It didn't come out until the mother went public. So she put her daughter in this danger by announcing the daughter's identity. Now, I don't know if he'll do anything about that. Seems to me the obvious next step is for Michael Newdow to go back to that judge and say, look, I did nothing to endanger my daughter. The mother did. Right? But that has not been resolved yet, and it still remains to be seen whether the Ninth Circuit judges who originally issued the thing are going to, let's see, they are currently considering motions to rehear the case or refer it to an expanded panel of 11 judges for reconsideration, and motions by the mother to dismiss it or remove the child from it. So, what are we to make of this? I mean, this is a constitutional issue, and it's being this woman is attempting to short-circuit it by yanking her daughter out, by changing her mind about whether it's okay or not, because of danger that she exposed her own child to.
Well, of course, I'm sure she doesn't see it that way, but I can imagine. Look, here's any woman in a custody battle for her child, or any parent in a custody battle.
They'll say anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
That's
sure.
a good point.
I'm sure that suddenly when she realized that her husband was public enemy number one,
not her husband,
or her ex partner or whoever, was suddenly like hated by all of America. I'm sure she just. I mean, I can't imagine any parent in a custody battle not loving that situation. Yeah. So she went on all these talk shows and started milking it for all she's worth.
Well, I remember when this first came up, immediately the defenders of theocracy were leaping into the fray, saying, "Oh, well, he doesn't have custody of his daughter, and therefore he's not got a case at all," and try to throw it out that way. I mean,
I find it interesting that actually this is the first I've heard that she originally agreed for her daughter to be a plaintiff in the suit.
That is what it says.
Yeah, this is new to me too.
Because
story.
Immediately when she first came out,
it says Banning originally acquiesced to the case, but withdrew her agreement based on information that developed later. That was the existence of death threats.
Yeah, because when she was getting on all the news shows and all the talk shows, she was just like, "No, we never. My daughter's
a Christian.
We never had a problem with this.
So she never in that
so
all
this is
of that.
why he's a bad guy and I should get custody. I mean, that was her whole shtick.
Yeah, and yet she never once said, Well, I originally agreed. She acted like it was a surprise to her.
Of course she's going to act that way, though. If she said that she originally agreed to it, people aren't going to take her side as much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so she's... Of course.
So, yeah, boy.
The question...
I find myself driven more and more to wanting to believe conspiracy theories.
I try not to.
I hate that.
I try not to, but man, it just kind of ekes in there every once in a while.
Well, it's just that you get so used to the disingenuousness of these people who favor a religious state and theocracy and all the rest of it.
And we know Christians actively lie to get their way.
Of course, yeah.
We had the
There's
case
nothing
recently,
they won't stoop to. Yeah.
Yeah, a school nearby had a group, what are they called?
Commandos USA.
Commandos USA, a motivational group.
Oh, yeah.
Volunteer to come to their school and do a motivational thing for the kiddies, right? Mm-hmm. Never once mentioned Christianity or Christian fundamentalism, and yet, when they got there, it was like wrestlers doing stunts and using it as an opportunity to preach the gospel.
Yeah.
And now that apparently turned out okay. The principal said, "Look, we didn't know what that was."
Yeah, he apologized.
He apologized publicly. He's not going to do it again. And there is a First Amendment essay contest being held at that school now.
Wow, yeah.
And so that's all fine. But the point is...
But the similar thing
these commandos, it's amusing the name too, because what is a commando? Right? Commandos are guys who, under the cover of darkness or camouflage or whatever, sneak in and perform these little strikes. So they're sneaking into this school under false pretenses in order to gain access to impressionable children.
Yeah.
They're
and it's really, really creepy, this combination of this paramilitary imagery, because these guys show up like in Kevlar and helmets and all decked out like these.
They come rappelling down.
Yeah, they come rappelling down from the gym ceiling.
Yeah. But I'm fishing here for
and this combination of
support for my desire for a conspiracy theory.
Well,
I think it's just a scumbag
These guys
theory.
do lie and cheat to get their way.
Well, did they, or did the school just ignore those parts of it? I mean,
I think it's quite possible.
If it was an isolated incident, I'd be willing to say that was the case. But this happens over and over and over. Last week there were several other stories in the news.
But I think a lot of these proselytizing groups or individual. We had a similar. When I was in high school, I remember it wasn't like this big commando team, but it was just one guy a motivational speaker, quote unquote, came to, and we did a little assembly deal. And at the end of it, it was all is this big Jesus sales pitch, and then it ended. And we were like, wubba. Yeah, and some people took some offense, and of course back then, if I'd known about First Amendment and all these things and these rights issues, I certainly would have pounced on it. I'd definitely pounced on it today. But again, it was a case of the principal said we didn't know he was going to say this. Yeah. And I think that because now there's more light on it. This is back in the 80s. Nowadays, when there's more attention to constitutional issues and separation issues, these groups. These Christian groups, they still want to do this, but now they realize, well we can't say anything about Jesus because that'll be, all the separation of church and state gang.
Well, they can't say anything to the guys that they need to get the permission from.
Yeah.
But they'll go ahead and say it once they're in.
But then when they're given their sales pitch to the schools, they just kind of conveniently forget to mention that, we're a bunch of Christian proselytizers.
Oh, well, my point was the school should have the obligation to research the group, and if you go on their website, it's obvious.
Yeah, when you go on the way,
Our co-chair, the ACA co-chair, Michelle Gadouche, wrote a letter to the principal of that school. And he says, what he says, so I buy into your conspiracy theory here because there was a conspiracy of sorts. The principal wasn't party to it particularly. Who was party to it, he said that he brought those people in on the suggestion of one of his teachers. Who said that they were a really good motivational group and they would do a lot of good things.
She probably knew better.
And I'm sure she knew better. Because she says she had seen them before. She's seen them before. She knew exactly what they were doing.
Wow.
And
so there you go. And so the principal, having no particular reason to think that one of his teachers is a lying asshole,
that's right,
just said, sure, why not?
We shouldn't be.
Does anybody remember the part of the Bible where Paul says that it's okay to lie as long as you win converts?
Yeah, I think it's 1 Corinthians 9:20.
1 Corinthians 9:20?
Right.
I'll look that up.
There was a bishop, not a bishop, but an early church scholar and leader who was extremely influential at the Council of Nice in the 3rd century, named Eusebius. And Eusebius is the person who is most accredited with actually falsifying the Josephus references of Christ.
Right.
This
we got
person,
something about that too, because there's that box of Jesus Brothers Bones that we'll be talking about in a bit.
But Eusebius wrote a book about how to spread Christianity, and one of the chapters of one of the titles of the chapters of one of the chapters of the book was basically it's okay to lie if it spreads Christianity. It's okay to tell whoever you're talking to whatever you want and whatever you want to if it gains confidence. So Paul said it. Church leaders at the council, the council that actually put together the Bible said it. It's ingrained in the religion.
Oh, look at who's that saint they made in Mexico recently, or is it South America?
Oh, right.
The Guadalupe person,
right? Who odds are never even existed.
Yeah.
And the church admits this.
Made of a saint anyway. Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
There's this whole... We've been doing this story for the last couple of weeks. It is coming out that the church actively hunted around for a physician willing to sign their name to a claim that there was a miraculous cure of this woman's ovarian cancer, right, from having Mother Teresa's medallion on her belly while she was suffering. Yeah. And the rest of the doctors of the house come out and said, no, this woman was taking the standard medical treatment for that condition. She was healed within the time frame expected for that medical treatment. The husband comes out and says, no, my wife did not have a miracle cure. She went to the doctors. It took as long as the doctors said. It's now, that they would have to lie to prop up a miracle by Mother Teresa, right?
Yeah. Well, that whole thing, they pushed up, they're supposed to be 5 years after their death before they can be sainthood, and they made it 2 years because of public pressure.
But apparently our current pope is like saint crazed. He's made more saints than any other pope ever in the history of the universe.
Yeah, it reminds me of that Onion article. This aging pope blessing everything in sight.
Okay, now...
the nice thing about the radio show versus TV shows, you can get up in the middle of it and go to the bathroom if you have
Nobody even knew you were gone. I know. We had a cardboard cutout of you sitting here, and we didn't even need that.
I blew half the ACA budget, too. We'll know better next time.
Now, something else happened in the news lately that...
Hold on a second.
Yes, sir?
I think this is actually what I was looking for. This would be Romans 3:7.
Yeah.
For if the truth of God hath more abounded through my lie unto his glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? And then it goes on from there.
Romans
it's only lying in favor of God.
That's Romans 3:7.
Justify the
means. There was something good in Corinthians where you said, but it was something about where he pretended to be all these other people.
Yeah, it's deceptive. To the rich I was as a rich man, and to the poor I was as whatever it took to get the message of Jesus out. I would.
So I guess you could say that applies to the commandos since they came in and decided to be as high school motivators.
Now, like I said, Jeff and I and Vic Farrow, former co-host of this here show, and who else is going to Washington?
Mary Sue Osborne and her daughter. Kyle and Charlotte Lawson.
Right.
Some relatively new members. Well, they've been members for a while, but they have not necessarily been coming to a lot of the stuff. But they've been to pretty much everything lately. So.
Right.
But they're going, and that's all. Laura Sargent may go.
Right. So that would be
8. We'll have at least 7.
I would have gone. I wanted to go. I would have gone.
We're not.
Yeah.
We're not pointing any fingers. We're not
I would like to go too, but I can't afford it.
But no, I'm sad because it's I wanted to.
Well, we'll bring some video back or something.
Yeah, please do.
You got a video camera? We were going to meet and talk about plans for this, and we never did that.
Yeah.
Did you not respond to my email?
I didn't.
I'm
not getting email. I haven't gotten anything from the ACA list in 5 days.
It was
I'm having to read on the list. Was it?
Yeah.
And that's Roadrunner has been very fine with me. But the last few weeks...
We should, after the show, let's sit down and make a plan about getting together and making some plans.
Okay.
We'll have a meeting about our upcoming meeting.
Your people talk to my people.
And as I said, there's going to be a bunch of speakers. It's not a real long event, and their schedule is already full. But I did go out there when they had their press conference at the National Press Club and spoke there, and got a nice letter from Ellen Johnson saying, boy, we'd love to fit you in, and so they put me on the list. But here is what I want to say. I wrote this morning after watching news about what's happening in the political races these days.
In Texas or
nationwide? The Republicans are one senatorial seat away from controlling all three branches of our government. This has not happened since 1929, and it would have a devastating effect upon all aspects of our society. Much more so this time around, since the Republicans are currently under the control of the extreme right-wing Christian fundamentalist conservatives. They've especially focused on Minnesota, where their candidate, Norm Coleman, has been in a tight race with incumbent liberal Democrat Senator Paul Wellstone. Coleman is a right-wing conservative Christian, handpicked by the White House to oppose Wellstone, who Bush obliquely referred to as, quote, one of these polarizer-type people pitting one group of people against another. There's irony for you.
Is that why we have elections?
Shush now, I'm reading my statement. When Coleman introduced Bush at a campaign stop last week, Bush's fourth appearance on Coleman's campaign trail, he said, quote, George Bush is a leader for our times. When we sing God Bless America, it is a prayer, and I believe this person is part of God's answer. Yesterday, Senator Wellstone, his family, top campaign officials, and everyone else on board died in a plane crash minutes after takeoff from a Minnesota airport. The Democratic Party is scrambling to come up with a replacement candidate with only 10 days left until the election. Has Mondale agreed yet?
When I left the house, I had CNN on, and as at that point he had not.
Okay.
They're still trying to decide whether or not to put anyone on the ballot at all. They may just leave Wellstone's name on there, and then if Wellstone wins.
You can't do that in Minnesota. It's against the
No. You can do that. If the Democratic Party chooses to do that, they can choose not to put anyone else on there. The governor can't force that to happen, or the government can't force that to happen. But if the Democratic Party chooses not to put anyone on there, they can certainly do that. It's like they did in Missouri 2 years ago with when a dead guy beat John Ashcroft.
Okay. All right.
But Minnesota's different. They can still be on the ballot, but a dead person cannot be elected to office.
But then that would mean that
a dead person cannot be on the ballot. The other guy would win by default.
All right. Let's not have an argument about that. Let me get through my statement. We have a lot of discussion about this when I'm done. So the Democratic Party is trying to come up with a replacement, and they're talking to Mondale. There's 10 days left until the election, and you know that the religious right is viewing this as another part of God's answer to their governmentally sanctioned prayers. This is the future of our nation we're talking about. I won't tell you who you should vote for, but I will tell you that if you don't go out and vote against the right-wing conservative fundamentalist takeover of America, then you are helping to hand them the reins of power. And you know what they will do with that power because they make no secret of their intentions. They'll use public school to indoctrinate the next generation of religious robots, and to marginalize any child who doesn't goose-step in line. They'll remove real science from public school and replace it with biblical fairy tales. They'll open the floodgates of public funds to faith-based everything, from social services to mental health care to who knows what else. Faith-based lawn care, maybe. They'll take away the reproductive freedom of women. They'll put up Christian insignia on every aspect of our government, promoting their claim to America's authority, legal system, even America's very existence. They will cement their control of the Supreme Court by installing right-wing fundamentalist Christian judges. They'll bring about the conflagration they're hoping for in the Middle East, which they believe will lead to the end of the world and the return of their beloved Jesus. I'm not a prophet. I am not predicting the future. This is not a slippery slope argument that I'm concocting in order to scare you. I am telling you about the power that the right-wing fundamentalists are one Senate seat away from attaining, and what they have already said they want to do with that power. I can't predict what they'll do after that, but maybe you can. When they've had their conflagration and the world is still here and there's still no Jesus, where do you think they will turn their attention next? We don't know, we know they don't like anyone who isn't a Christian fundamentalist, particularly atheists. Bush's daddy is on record saying that atheism is incompatible with citizenship. And they've already made it clear that they consider the Constitution nothing but a minor annoyance, at least when they're not twisting it to pretend it says what they want it to say. Do you think, once they have the unchecked power to reinterpret or rewrite it, that your own constitutional freedoms will be safe? This isn't crystal ball stuff. Look to Afghanistan if you want to see what lies in the future of an America ruled by religious fundamentalism. The Taliban publicly executed infidels. I can't say it'll go that far here, but I can ask, once the Christian fundamentalists control every branch of our government, what's to stop it from happening here? If you are not yet registered to vote, get registered now. If you can vote early and haven't voted yet, go out and vote now. And if you can't vote until November 5th, find out where you'll need to go and when you'll have to be there now. If you have friends or relatives who oppose the religious right, and you don't know for sure that they're going to vote, go and remind them now. I do not want to wake up on November 6th to an America run exclusively by right-wing conservative Christian fundamentalists. Do you? That's my thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's very sobering.
So, I was listening to CNN, and they're saying, Monday will probably go for it, and Monday will probably win. He's got a big name, and there's a sympathy vote and all that stuff. But that it got to this point where we'd even have to start worrying about that, right? That one election marks the difference between Republican conservatives controlling everything and some vague semblance of balance that we've got now is extremely, extremely sobering.
It's a lot like a quantum uncertainty state, isn't it?
Oh, shut up. Have they found Wellstone's body? Maybe he's not dead.
We were talking about conspiracy theories earlier, and I really try not to be one of those conspiracy theories kind of theory.
I will go on record saying that I think it's within belief that Christian fundamentalist conservatives are capable of murder.
I've heard,
but I don't think that they.
I don't really think they did. The thing that I've heard twice on once on CNN, once on MSNBC, that as of the evening before the wreck, Wellstone was flying to a funeral of a well-known Minnesota Democrat whenever he crashed. Ted Kennedy was in town campaigning for Wellstone that morning. They campaigned together that morning before he flew out. As of the evening before, Ted Kennedy was supposed to be on that plane going to the same funeral. I've heard this from MSNBC and CNN. Once again, I try really hard not to be a conspiracy theorist, but after the election of 2000,
right?
Yeah, they get rid of
the two
most liberal guys,
the two giant liberal voices in the Senate.
What's happening in Kennedy's Senate race, or is he not running again?
This is not his year to run, but
okay.
Kennedy had a close election back in 1994, I believe. And the guy came within like 8 percentage points of him.
Yeah. Now I don't seriously think that this would. I don't seriously think that this was a conspiracy.
I don't either, really.
Because anybody with any kind of brains realizes you can't do something like this and completely have the complete control over the follow-up investigation that you would need in order for it not to get uncovered. And that would just be giving away any. They could bide their time. As it is, the religious right has grown so powerful that, if they don't win it this time, they can expect to win it next time, right? True. It's not like their power is ebbing, it?
Although they think that and it's probably a valid assumption given Bush's popularity polls especially every time we go to war.
Yeah.
And George Jr. is certainly more. Is waiting longer so that the effects of the war will still be there in 2004. Because we're going to attack Iraq. just a matter of time. And he's hoping that will but
he'll do the old, just like his dad did. He's so, here's my thinking.
Well, Clinton did it too.
Yeah.
So
that's just the thing politicians do. Right. Here's my thinking about what's up with Iraq. We've got this guy Bin Laden, right? And we've got Mullah Omar, and they've scampered off into the hills, right?
Yeah.
And all of the resources of the world's greatest superpower can't find them, and that's kind of embarrassing. But hey, there's this Saddam Hussein guy from 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And we know where he is.
Yeah, we know exactly where he is.
Oh, exactly.
So he's like this big celebrity villain.
It's face-saving.
Yeah, so we'll get him, and it will appear as if Bush is doing something about the war on terror, and then come 2004, Americans will all just magically forget that their 401ks have vanished, and they'll re-elect Bush. Yeah. That's what the plan is there.
I'm waiting for the political ad. You remember that speech he made right after the attacks about how he'd get Osama bin Laden? I'm waiting for the ad that shows that speech and then an empty jail cell.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the Democrats have punted. I mean, they've punted this whole issue. I mean, there's been no solid opposition to the war except for people like Wellstone and people like Lloyd Doggett. They basically
Lloyd Doggett, who spoke to the crowd at the AIDS walk, by the way, and was awesome.
Yeah.
First, we had Gonzalo Barrientos, state senator, state representative, who his speech was chock full of God talk.
Yeah.
And then Doggett got up there and did not bring up religion.
Wasn't Barrientos the one that got arrested for DWI?
Yeah. He didn't look too good.
Yeah.
Plus,
But Gonzalo Barrientos is on our side on a lot of these things. I mean, he votes for most of the things that we would like him to vote for.
Right.
So he's one of compared to.
Yeah, but he's playing the game. He's playing the name dropping game.
Oh yeah.
Oh, here's something interesting that's up with the Rick Perry campaign. I saw this last night on News 8.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently, the Rick Perry's people, and of course we don't really like him a whole lot.
No.
But Perry's campaign apparently is now. They're claiming, first off, that Perry has a double-digit lead over Sanchez. Now, usually, if you've got that kind of lead, you're advertising pre-election, you want to close the sale. You want to present really nice positive ads, and it's our guy, and show him with puppies and his kids and all the rest of it. But what the Perry campaign has recently done, their latest, they've gone on this attack campaign against Sanchez, more or less accusing him of complicity in murder.
Yeah.
There was something about some.
They got these. Have you seen this ad?
I've seen the ad. Yeah.
Yeah. They got these two cops, these two federal drug agents, who were talking about a friend of theirs who was killed, and they're basically trying to lay that at the feet of Tony Sanchez.
Yeah, like Sanchez's bank was the bank he uses was apparently laundering money for this drug lord.
Yeah, they made that claim, and it's been refuted before. The judge in the case, when this was brought up, came out and said Perry's lying.
Yeah.
But he's still using this, and he's using these two drug agents, both of them Hispanic, by the way, who are lamenting the death of one of their colleagues and saying that when Tony Sanchez had the opportunity to cooperate with the feds and send this money or keep this money or give it or turn it over or whatever, he chose instead to send it back to the drug runners. Which has been shown once again to be patently false.
But it's interesting.
Lying for Jesus.
Yeah, but it's interesting how this supposed great Christian man is doing this really sleazy attack campaign when he's claiming to have this great lead.
Yeah.
So why get into this attack campaign that could actually, some of the pundits are saying this could really turn some people off just because it's so.
I can tell you exactly why.
Yeah.
Because
he's an asshole.
Well, that's reason number one. Reason number two is political. The polls that you are seeing do show Perry in the lead. Some of them even show a double-digit lead, 10, 11 points. However, those polls are polls of quote-unquote likely voters. Likely voters are people who voted in the last election. They call these people and they ask them who you're going to vote for.
No one's called me.
No, well, that's the standard thing.
Yeah.
Polls are usually fairly reliable. If it's a normal standard election. This year, we have in Texas, running for governor as an Hispanic, running for state senator, or United States senator, an African American. The Democratic Party in this state this year has registered the last I heard, was over 200,000 new voters in those communities, Hispanic and black communities. And if those people get out and vote in, the numbers that the Democrats are going to try to get them to get out and vote in, that 10% lead will evaporate and go away. He knows he's in trouble. He knows he's in a dogfight, and we're going to see negative ads until the day of the election.
Vote, people, vote. That's
speaking of negative ads, do we have the story of the woman on the school board who accused her opponent of we can just refer to it. We don't need the details. But there's a story in the news of a woman who was in some minor, local election thing, and part of her campaign strategy was to accuse her opponent of having a connection with an atheist organization, and she won. After that, in Pennsylvania right now, there is a race.
Iris Van Meter is who it was.
That's her.
She is a very scary-looking lady.
Yeah, she looks like a Christian grandma.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania right now, there is a race between a Republican Christian and a Democrat Jew. And the Republican Christians campaign just sent out an email to his supporters saying, a clear difference. I believe in heaven. Yeah. I believe in heaven, and my opponent doesn't.
You're delusional. I'll vote for you.
Yeah, it's that kind of crap. It's, that now they're using that as arguments for why you should vote for or against people.
Well, you see, that works opposite with me. I'm voting for the sole purpose this time to vote against Rick Perry.
Yeah.
I've never voted before, but my reason...
Sanchez is going to be that much better.
No.
He's better than Rick Perry.
Here's the difference. Sanchez, being a politician, and I've worked in politics since I was 14 years old, in paid positions and in volunteer positions. So politicians say things to get elected. What the question becomes: what do you think he's going to do when he gets in office? And I don't believe for a moment that Sanchez, as much as I dislike a lot about Tony Sanchez, his support for Governor Bush over Ann Richards, for example, I don't believe for a moment that he is going to make getting prayer back in schools an active part of his administration, like Perry, or he's going to blatantly disregard the Constitution like Perry has done.
That's the incident that made me mad, that West Texas middle school incident.
Yeah. Sanchez is saying, he's saying all the things that he's got to say to get elected, just like Perry is doing. However,
Perry means them.
Yeah, and will actually do those things. He's shown he's willing to do those things. Yeah. That's why I held my nose and voted for Tony Sanchez.
So, everybody get out there and vote. We can stem the tide. We can keep America from falling into the hands of religious conservatism whole hog.
Yeah, the fundy fascists.
Right. But hey, as annoying as it is now, having to constantly struggle against these guys, it'd be much worse if that option was closed off to us. So
this is Non-Prophets. We're broadcasting.
So what are your contingency plans? Where are you going to move to?
France.
France?
Yeah.
France.
Yeah, Jill speaks French.
Yeah.
And so she can actually communicate. Yeah. And France, of all the countries in Europe, has the highest atheist population of any of us.
I might be going with you then.
I'm not going to let these fuckers chase me out of my own country.
Oh well, you'll feel differently when they've got you in a noose.
Well. Yeah,
See, I don't have a contingency.
So I'm
sorry. I can't say that will ever happen.
Yeah, no.
I'm just saying.
Just in case it does, you'll feel different.
Or theoretically.
I don't have a contingency plan because I think that there's nowhere to run. I think if America becomes an evil power, then one by one, everybody else will fall to them.
New Zealand just seems extremely cool on a lot of levels.
And you think that they won't eventually get taken over?
Yeah. I mean, I find it very hard to believe that. So let's go back in time and imagine, World War II, right?
Uh-huh.
Suppose the Nazis had won. It would be really hard to hold together a worldwide evil government. I really think that would be extremely hard.
Well,
but you're putting forth the position that the U.S. will become an evil government. Wouldn't that be I mean,
they might not.
We're tougher than they were?
Well, the U.S., right now, the United States is the most powerful country ever to exist in this, and on the planet, in mankind, in the history of mankind. So,
I don't know how they compare to the Roman Empire.
Well,
the Roman Empire did not have nuclear weapons.
No.
Yeah, that is a difference.
No, but they got big.
But a lot of other countries have them too.
Yeah.
I think what you'd see is we'd see a World War III with America as the bad guy. I think that's entirely possible, and then I just want to get out from under the. I just want to get out from under the atomic rain.
I think if it came to that,
New Zealand would work.
I think if it came to that, then everybody else would lose.
Do we have military bases in New Zealand?
Oh, probably.
Ah, shit.
Well, New Zealand actually is one of
Zambia, then maybe.
New Zealand's one of those countries that like wouldn't let American ships dock there because they had nuclear weapons.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, I just say
that's looking better and better.
Yeah.
I just say if it comes to that, all the atheists make our own little country, and then they won't.
Oh yeah,
but don't do that.
And then don't do that.
But then there wouldn't.
We'll make a country that they can invade.
Well, what I'm saying is they wouldn't have the brain power to think up these new weapons.
We would have all the scientists. We could.
78% of them, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, the good scientists.
Actually, the Academy of Sciences, it's 93%.
National Academy of Sciences is 93%. Are you sure?
Well,
I thought that was in the 70s.
It's 93%. Let me quantify that.
Okay.
It's 93% with the people who actually deal in the sciences that matter.
Oh, where it matters.
Yeah, whether or not if you're geology, biology.
So we could outweapon them.
Stuff like rocket building. I mean, there are plenty of engineers who are religious wackos.
But are there nuclear physicists that are religious wackos? That's the question.
If the physicists won't make them.
Dude.
Yeah.
But Russell, just so you know, in New Zealand you can get American films and American video games. They even make some American films in New Zealand.
Cool,
but
right? Lord of the Rings is coming from New Zealand.
If America becomes a big theocracy, then I won't get any good films and video games anymore.
You'll get Christian films and video games.
Have you played Christian video games?
I've seen a couple, yeah.
There are Christian video games, and they're the most pathetic. There was a Noah's Ark game for the Super Nintendo that kind of copied off of Castle Wolfenstein. I think they actually...
When you're in the Ark and you're trying to find your way out and you have to shoot animals on the way?
With little tranquilizer pellets, but you got the same animal. Like each level has one type of animal that you attack over.
Isn't that more than 2x2?
Yeah, but should there only be two animals? I mean, you tranquilize two of them and you're done with the level. Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, like I was saying to Russell...
games, but
but like I was saying to Russell before the game, I work in the computer games industry. It is largely non-believers, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that people who are imaginative and creative and capable of understanding programming are largely the people that are smart enough not to believe a lot of religious crap.
I'm in touch with on
Are you sure you want to out this guy?
What?
You might not want to say exactly what game he did, because he might not want to be publicly out.
A major strategy game that many people enjoy is
that involves... Oh, no.
He is an atheist, and he said that like 4 people total on his team were atheists. And I said, wow, that's an amazing coincidence. And we got to talking about how, it just tends to happen that people who are intelligent and creative like that just wind up being atheists.
Yeah.
Huh. It is an interesting discussion because I'm working on a massively multiplayer online fantasy role-playing game, Drancic, www.drancic.com, for those of you who want to go there and download the software and play in the free open beta. And we had a big meeting yesterday about the religion in our fantasy world, right? Huh. It's a fantasy, right? It's medieval fantasy. There's churches in the game, and there's magic, and so we have to have a story to explain all this stuff. And we talked about that a lot. And in these discussions, we talked about what was going on in other games, and it's startling how many assumptions about religion and philosophy make their way into these games, without even though it's largely non-believers making them,
yeah.
Because they don't, I don't know if it's whether they're just not thinking hard enough to come up with alternatives, or whether they're just playing the market and saying, well, most people will like it if life and death works like this, or what. I'm not sure what their motivation is.
I think it's a certain amount of just wanting a certain amount of familiarity, in the way that things like death work, because it's no fun if your character dies and that's it.
Right. Well, there's one game out there where the part of the premise of the game is the god of death is gone. I forget whether he's dead or what, but therefore your character automatically resurrects if you get killed in the game, because there's no more access to the afterlife. And we're doing something similar to that. We basically came up with a deistic polytheism, where there used to be a bunch of gods that created the world, right? And then something happened, and now they're all cut off from the world, and so humanity is on its own. And that's kind of...
So how do you keep popping back up when you die?
In Dransic?
Yeah.
There are these things on the world called spawn gates that you basically reappear at that point, at the nearest one.
So this is kind of what you're kind of saying is that the gods...
Yeah, World of Warcraft is going to do that too.
Is it?
Yeah.
That actual mechanism may change now that we finally have a backstory. We may revisit exactly how we do that.
So what you're saying is basically that since the gods are cut off from this world,
right,
that death doesn't really happen.
Right.
Right. So therefore the gods are those that are responsible for death.
That's right.
That's right.
Right. The heaven and the afterlife and all that, and hells or whatever, they're all cut off from the world, and now the world is just separate by itself. And we're still going to have the religions in the game. There's like the lingering veneration of the principles that the gods stood for that go on. But everybody kind of realizes, well, it's not like this is going to make the gods do stuff for us. Yeah. It's just... They must have known what they were talking about. They were gods.
Yeah. Oddly enough, at Happy Hour this week, Martin and myself and Kyle were having a discussion about speculative fiction, and a lot of atheists seem to read science fiction, fantasy, things like that, and whether or not maybe the spiritual aspect, whether it be magic or religion or whatever, in fantasy literature, maybe is one of the reasons why atheists are drawn to fantasy literature.
Well, I think, it was the discussion of do people sort of have this need for these flights of fancy, and for an atheist, does reading like fantastic literature, science fiction, fantasy, what have you, horror, kind of fill the same need that religion fills for religious people?
Yeah. Yes, it's interesting.
The difference, of course, being that, we
know it's not real.
Yeah, but there's still...
Right, there's healthy ways to indulge that.
That's right.
Indulge that interest. I don't know if I'd call it a need. I think it's an interest, because take the TV show, right, Atheist Experience. We get so many Christian viewers. And I'm convinced that the reason that they're attracted to the show is it's one of the few opportunities that they get to think about stuff. For them, atheism and these questions they're not supposed to ask or think about in church fit exactly the same thing as interesting thoughts about how magic works in this fantasy world.
Right.
It's a mental playground.
Yeah, we pretty much have
to
think about it all the time, because our culture is swimming in opposing viewpoints.
That's right.
If you even mention that you don't believe in God, then you're going to have people all over you.
Yeah. Like I did at ASU.
Really?
I had this girl, I made the mistake of telling her I was atheist at ASU, and for the rest of the time I was there, she was like following me around, trying to give me Bibles and stuff. And it finally came to blows one night when at like 2 o'clock in the morning, there's this knock on my door in the dorm. And I didn't answer it. I just yelled, "Who is it?" And she's like, "It's Leanne, and I think I figured out how to prove to you there's a God."
Uh-oh.
Her proof was, let's pray about something. And it...
You know what I say when people ask me that? I say, okay, I'll agree to pray with you, but if I do, you have to first agree in writing that if we pray and nothing happens, then you will take that as disproof of your God.
But what she wanted to do was she wanted to pray about something and wait 2 weeks and see if that problem was solved.
Fine.
Well, in 2 weeks, most
God's
any
got this big
pressing
backlog
problem
of
you have
prayers that he's working on.
Yeah, really, it takes
Right?
a while. In 2 weeks, most problems are solved.
Yeah.
Don't pray for a problem. Pray for something that is unlikely but possible to happen.
Right.
Right.
It is possible to scientifically test the existence of God if you come up with the right test.
You know, that was another thing that this guy Kurt came up with in his email to me. The whole, science can't ever prove the existence of supernatural things because it a priori rejects them. It said, sorry, dude, no. We could prove there was telekinesis. Right? Mm-hmm. We could prove it happened. Mm-hmm. It would be really easy by looking at the physical effects of that supernatural force.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You don't actually have to. I mean, we've proved the existence of planets by looking at the physical effect they had without long before we've ever actually located the body. Mm-hmm. It happens. Yeah. It's entirely doable.
Pluto was identified long before they had the telescopes that had the capacity to actually see it.
Right.
And black holes were inferred for a long time.
Right.
So,
I mean, it's considered additional proof when you actually find the thing, but it's valid. It's a valid inference as long as you've got a real good case based on the side effects.
An inability to understand, scientific theorizing and the whole predictive nature of it. That if you see a certain effect, you can do actually what's called post-diction, which is you can say, well, what could this be the result of?
Right.
This is how scientists got to the Big Bang and various other theories. They say, well, what we're seeing these conditions existing now. What would the causes be? The most realistic causes be, and then you examine.
And you think of other implications of those same causes, and you find those.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems like sure, you could do all kinds of tests for supposed paranormal stuff. Psychic predictions, precognitive.
Right. Plus, once again, and my favorite response to people who say, "Oh, you're an atheist, so it could never be proved to you that a God existed." Sure, it could, because if there is a God, right, particularly the standard three omni type God, snap his fingers, make me omniscient. Now I know.
Now you know.
Right? Yeah. He's omnipotent, so it doesn't take him any effort at all. And I would know for sure that he existed because I'd be omniscient.
Yeah.
That's all it would take. Though, actually, I'll have to think about this because my friend Denis Loubet, who has been on this show before, forwarded me a post from Atheism where this guy proposes the argument from omniscience. Argument against God. Right? And it goes like this. Our evidence that God is omniscient is only His word for it in His holy book. To a being being that claims that it's omniscient, it can't know whether it really is or not. Right?
Right.
It can either, because it might be that it just thinks it is, or it might be that it really is, but how could it know? Right? It would just, particularly when it's omnipotent, it could just make things be the way that it wanted them to be. Right? Doesn't mean it's actually predicting anything.
Yeah.
And yet, a God that really was omniscient would be aware of this problem and wouldn't claim that he was omniscient because he would know that he couldn't know for sure. Therefore, and God, at least the Christian God, isn't a liar. Therefore, the fact that God claims to be omniscient in the Bible is proof that He doesn't exist.
Whoa.
That was a pretty cute one. I'm mulling it over. I think every time there's a new one, you got to think it over.
You're assuming God's honesty there.
I claim that if we had God sitting here before us in like a room, and He was willing to submit to some tests, we could test the proposition that He was omniscient.
Well, how? How would we know?
We couldn't prove it. Yeah. We could, for instance, have a random number generator, and he would have to write down, say, ahead of time what number is going to come up next.
All the time, and get it right all the time.
Yeah.
How do you know that? Because He is omniscience, though, and not His omnipotence.
He would.
That's a good point. How do you know He's just not making the random number come up?
No, they're not equivalent.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. If He's omnipotent, He could just write down a number and then make that number appear.
If He's not, he could.
Okay, so it could be.
So again, God remains unfalsifiable in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how.
But I'm just saying that you can certainly make some reasonable test that would be very persuasive, if not proof.
Right.
Oh, sure. And I'm willing to accept things on less than 100% proof.
I'm too. Christians always tell us...
That's one of these things Kurt just did not get.
Yeah. Christians always claim that we demand absolute proof in order to...
It's a preponderance of evidence.
Yeah. I mean...
Right.
There's not absolute proof for the Big Bang, for evolution, for any of these things, but what there is there's a preponderance of evidence supporting those.
Yeah, really what we're encountering there when we hear that kind of thing from Christians or from pseudoscientists griping about, you won't take my orgone rays seriously, is that really that is sour grapes about the fact that you can't overturn a well-established scientific principle by irreproducible results and hand-waving.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so they inflate it out of proportion and say, you're setting the standards way too high. Too high for you, but you're an nitwit.
I don't even need, I just need one piece of compelling evidence would at least get me to consider the possibility of God.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that yet. So,
right.
Why even consider?
Paul has his interesting complete disproof of any sort of, Paul Wilson, any sort of concept of God whatsoever. And it's interesting. He posted it to the email list yesterday, where he talks about any being that you would consider, that anybody would consider a god, to the distinction that the term God really means anything. Okay, that this is a being that is incredibly all powerful, that deserves worship, my allegiance, that sort of a thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, what's it, just a big alien? I mean,
as soon as you say, that's what breaks it for me completely.
Yeah.
As soon as you say part of the definition is he deserves my worship.
Yeah.
There's no such thing.
Yeah. I mean,
as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing that deserves my worship just by definition.
Yeah, because what if
there are things I might be willing to worship.
Yeah.
If they were good enough, but it would be my choice. It's not. By its nature, it deserves my worship, and that's usually inherent in these God definitions.
Yeah, because what if we came in a situation where this big UFO landed in the White House lawn, and these aliens popped out, and they were fantastically advanced beyond our wildest dreams. They were apparently immortal. They had the cure for all diseases. They could simply apparently make just stuff happen by the force of will and through psychic powers. I mean, would it just be appropriate for? I'm sure some people would. But would it be appropriate for us to simply worship...
Some people already do. They're called aliens.
Yeah. But would it be appropriate to just worship these aliens simply because, they can do all this kind of stuff that we can't do? I mean, because it seems to me that it would be, if someone from a technologically advanced society like our own were to pop up and, were to show up to some tribe of primitive Bushmen, and we have all these abilities that they don't have and these advancements they don't have, should they worship us? Well, we might think so, but they would. But there's really no. I just can't conceive of a being that I would. Right. I mean, I might go, wow, that's really cool, all that stuff you can do, but not that I'm going to now bow down to you.
Andy?
No. Do y'all remember the MacGyver show that used to come on years ago? There was an episode where he went back to the 14th century and was with Merlin, and he took a match and lit it, and they saw it as he lit this stick on fire, so they thought he was this all-powerful wizard because he lit a match.
So MacGyver did a knockoff of Connecticut Yanking King Arthur.
Yeah, pretty much.
Arthur C. Clarke said, any sufficiently advanced form of technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yep. But there's part of that. I've heard that phrase misused so many times by people who want to believe in magic. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And really, I mean, I've heard that argument that as soon as we know how, then we, that's what's magic.
Well, then you need to. Then the thing you ask those people is, okay, show me the technology behind your magic power.
Right. The rest of that phrase is to somebody who is sufficiently ignorant. Right? Because that match is not going to convince me that MacGyver is a wizard, right?
Yep.
Because I understand it.
Right.
Right.
Okay, well, on this show we've been talking about some science fiction, some politics, some video games, and some speculative fiction.
And get Rick Perry the hell out of
and I'd like to throw in a little. This is kind of abnormal, but I'd like to throw in a little game review.
Game review?
It's an old.
Well, we were talking about computer games. Go ahead.
It's a very old game, actually. Actually, yes. It's a game from 1986 when all the really good games were text adventures. I know, although Jeff doesn't believe that.
I never
remember that.
Text Adventures could have worked for me, except that by the time I got into them, the sales strategy was make them impossible to solve by just using your brains, and therefore they can make you spend another $20 on a clue book.
Yeah. Well, A Mind Forever Voyaging, which is the game I'm talking about, what is actually very good about that, because most of the game is about exploration and learning things, and not about figure out how to get out of this impossible situation using some stuff you've got in your pocket.
Unless you forgot to pick that
Basically, you play an intelligent computer, and this computer has the capability to simulate the future. So the guys who designed this thing say, we've got, here it is, we're in 2031, and the world is in big trouble, and we've got this loudmouth conservative senator who's coming in with this gigantic plan to overhaul everything. And so why don't we program in the parameters of the plan and send the computer to simulate the future and see how it turns out? So part one is just learning about what the plan does, learning about the world situation, and then exploring some of this speculative future, which is 10 years forward from where you are. And everything seems to be okay. It seems to be gradually turning around, and so they decide to adopt the plan. Then, using data that you got from the first simulation, they can extrapolate further into the future, and as you go 20 years and then 30 years and 40 years and finally 50 years into the future, it gets scarier and scarier. And a big part of the future is this huge theocracy rising from something called the Church of God's Word, where you could read a pamphlet in every time period that talks about its growing power, and eventually one of the climaxes of the game is when your son in the simulation joins the Church of God's Word and then beats up and kidnaps his mother.
Wow. Yeah, that's
it's an excellent game. It's one of the few computer games I've ever played that I would categorize with serious science fiction. And it's probably available at the-underdogs.org. And if you're really afraid of puzzles, then you can download a walkthrough from plenty of places. The game is A Mind Forever Voyaging.
It's going to cost me another $20.
A Mind Forever Voyaging.
A Mind Forever Voyaging.
It's
a text adventure, and it takes some
games to new operating systems.
No, it actually takes old PC games mostly and just makes them available since nobody is selling them anymore.
Yeah.
Now, we would be remiss if we did not take a moment to talk about the great big news item, the discovery of the supposed box of bones that belonged to Jesus' brother.
Well, it's just a box, right?
Right. There's no bones in it, but it's an ossuary, which was a box he'd put the bones of the deceased in. Creepy how they used to treat dead bodies back in those days. I'm not going to read any of this. I'm not going to read this entire story, but important things for atheists to keep in mind when you encounter these claims from Christians, because they're going to start using this as their new Shroud of Turin, right? Yeah. Their new supposed absolute proof that Jesus actually existed. One, it very well might be a forgery. The only argument offered by the claimants that the letters carved into this limestone box are not a forgery is they studied it and it didn't look like they were made with modern tools. Yeah. Well, no decent forger would use modern tools to carve those things. So that's iffy. Plus, the history of the box is not known.
Yeah, where the hell's this thing been for 2,000 years?
Nobody knows. Yeah. Basically, nobody knows. So that's a lot of time for that. I mean, that forgery could have happened 1,500 years ago.
Like the Turin,
right.
500 years ago.
So there's no particular reason to think that modern tools even existed at the time that the letters were carved. Two, the names on the box, Joseph, Jesus, and James, all common names in that culture at that time. Wow. So the presence of the names is no big thing. They do claim that it's unusual for the brother to be listed in the credits on the ossuary. And it says Jesus there, so that's proof he must have been important. Even an important guy named Jesus is no proof it's the one they're talking about. Third, historical does not equal supernatural.
Right.
And that was a game they could try to play with the Shroud of Turin, because it's like, it doesn't make any sense if this thing would have even ever happened. Yeah. Right? This is a box that people carved. There's nothing supernatural about the box itself.
Yeah.
And even if it proved that there was an historical Jesus who was the one that they're thinking of, doesn't mean he ever had any supernatural powers or anything supernatural ever happened around him.
That's right.
It's just the new Shroud of Turin, folks. No reason to get antsy or think maybe the Christians might have been onto something all along.
But even, like you said, even if it is 100% authentic and proving that there was a real dude named Jesus,
right.
Doesn't prove he walked on water.
Right.
Doesn't prove he cured lepers.
Right.
Doesn't prove he came back from the dead.
Right.
Oh,
but
I think
of course, what happened?
We're done.
We're done.
I mean, we're playing the closing music. So goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for having me
We'll
on.
see you in 2 weeks.